Okay, so now we're recording the call. Good morning, how's it going?
More.
Doing good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. For today, we're going to talk about the two last aspects related to the research that we're creating, right? So in this case, what we have to take into account is going to be just the what the fact related or the issues that we're going to consider inside the limitations and the ethical considerations, right? So
Okay.
I want to share my screen for us to look information about both things. So limitations and ethical considerations, right? Okay, are you watching my screen right now? Okay, so we're going here. Where's that? It's not here. It's not here. Lost it here. No, 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 no. I thought I had it. Well, if I don't have it, I can open a new one. Mm-mm. Yeah, I forgot where's that. Okay, this is the one that I was looking for. I think I shared this material on it model, right?
Okay.
The material that is going here. What are the limitations of a study and how to write them? And I think I already uploaded this information on that model, if I'm not wrong, right? So what is the limitations? As we see right here, we have that they are, or we're going to take into account the flaws or shortcomings, which could be the result
I
of
can see.
unavailability of resources. You can see the screen?
Yeah. Can.
You cannot?
Teacher, there is too much noise.
Yeah, there's a noise, but it's not mine.
Am I the
There-
only way who don't see the information?
let's see. What can I do here? Alex, try to look for my screen and click on my screen, right? The screen that or try to look for my profile. And over there, you're going to watch what I'm visualizing. Okay. Now you're watching my screen right now.
No.
Mm, that's the bad thing about this. What can I do? I'm going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to share it again. Okay. Okay. Can you watch my screen right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to mute everyone because I think it's just because of the noise that someone is creating. That maybe you're not what? That maybe you're not watching my screen. So if you want to tell me something, so you're going to use the chat room, right? For me to know who's going to talk. or who needs to ask a question. Are you watching my screen right now? Okay, perfect. Yeah, it's because of the noise that nobody was watching the screen. Okay, I'm going to continue. I'm going to start turning my page to another page just to see if we're watching the same or not. Okay, here. Okay. So as we saw before, the limitations of a study are its flaws or shortcomings, which could be the result of unavailability of resources, small sample size, flawed methodology, etc. No study is completely flawless or inclusive to all possible aspects. Therefore, the listing of the limitations of your study reflects honesty and transparency, and also shows that have complete understanding of the topic. Generally speaking, the limitations are added in the discussion section just before the concluding paragraph. While you should definitely point out the limitations, do not get into an elaborate discussion about them. Keep the section short and crisp. The limitations of a study basically discusses any unanswered question that your study did not address. So, in this part, while we're talking about the limitations, is going to be just related to that. So to things you're not going to answer. Okay. So example, if your objective is to detect how anxiety affects students, so you're not going to watch or you're not going to try to learn some things related to learning methodologies or learning strategies, because you're not going to be focused on that, right? You're going to be focused on the learning, the anxiety issues. Okay. Example: I'm going to try to answer some things related to how to develop oral production, right? Therefore, I'm not going to be focused on written production. I'm not going to be focused on uh, oral comprehension, just in oral production. Okay. Wow. That is to say that in the limitation sections, I'm going to open my thesis for you to watch some little aspects about that. And today I'm going to share that. I told you long ago that I was going to share my thesis, but I have forgotten doing so. Okay, no, it's my thesis. Okay. There we go. Okay, here, this part. If you see right here, okay, if you see right here, I need to look for the recording. Okay. And this part, if you see it, so we're going to talk about what is going to be just the limiting part of this research. So in this case, it is said en lo que concierne a las limitaciones del presente proyecto, se tienen en cuenta factores tales como espacio, tiempo y población. Los factores espacio y tiempo se ven limitados por el calendario académico establecido por la universidad y a las posibles actividades académicas que sean designadas por tanto la universidad, la facultad de educación y o el programa de lenguas extranjeras que puedan interferir. En lo relacionado a la población, las posibles limitaciones serían estudiantes que no den su consentimiento para ser parte dentro de la investigación, los participantes que por alguna circunstancia decidan cancelar la asignatura durante el tiempo de investigación. So those are going to be the physical issues related to the limitations. The other part about this is going to be just related to the objectives, right? Because with the objectives, you're going to set ideas related to what we are going to study, right? We don't want to go farther, therefore, we're going to study these aspects, right? Example, if I see the objectives right here, I said, desarrollar la producción e interacción oral del inglés como lengua extranjera en los estudiantes de inglés intermedio 1 de la licenciatura de lenguas extranjeras de la Universidad de Pamplona mediante la implementación de material audiovisual en la plataforma Edmodo. So, which are going to be the limitations right here? Number one, I'm going to use Edmodo. I was using Edmodo. Number two, I was focused on both oral production and interaction of English. So that's it. So developing the oral and the oral production and interaction by using audio-visual material inside Edmodo. So those are going to be, or those were the aspects that I took into account for me to limit my study, right? So the objectives right here, they're going to limit the reach you're going to have for this research. Okay, clear about the limitations part? You can write in the chat room, please, or you can activate right now your microphones for me to know your points of view related to the limitations.
Teacher,
Yes.
do we have to write, for example, one page or just, I don't know, 2, 3, or 1?
Well,
in terms
I
of
think.
limitation?
Okay, sounds good. Well, you can deactivate your microphone for you to have my access to my screen. Okay. Yes. So right here, what we're going to use, or what we're going to take into account right here, is going to be just the fact. No, sorry. Writing the limitations part is going to be just something short, maybe one page, maybe page and a half. In my case, I just wrote one paragraph, as you see right here. Limitations, right? So just half a page, or maybe just one paragraph. But if I show you, for example, another project that I have right here from the master degree I did. Let's wait a little. I have a lot of documents. Well, it's still on the run. Okay, I'm going to continue with this. Well, here in the limitations part, what you're going to do, or what we can do, is to create something or to write something that is going to be specific, right, in some way. Taking into account that if you're going to talk about, so for example, related to the time and space and the population, you need to talk about what is going to be just the possible limitations about the population. So I forgot writing right here that the population was going to be just focused on the B1.1 level, right? So that was going to be my population. Here, I have it here in population. Here. So here, it's going to be this part. So it's going to be just related to the level B1.1. Okay, it was already open right here. Here. Now, the limitations in this other project. So as you see right here, entre los inconvenientes y dificultades identificados con posible ocurrencia para el desarrollo del proyecto, se destacó el escaso interés de los jóvenes por el tema, la elección de estrategias apropiadas para la puesta en práctica de la comunicación oral y la concentración dispuesta de los estudiantes ante el acceso de nuevos ambientes de aprendizaje. Todas en conjunto guardan relación con la participación efectiva de los alumnos en la propuesta. Therefore, one of the limitations established right here is going to be related to the topic of study, which is going to be just related to virtual learning environments, right? This one right here.
In this
So the
case,
length, yes.
in this case, when saying that the students presenting a lack of interest, how do we know that?
Okay, but it's going to be that is going to be just at the end of the what? That is going to be written at the end of the data analysis process, right? So in that case, we can see that that was a limiting issue. So that is why when I'm telling you the participants, right? And I forgot to write right here inside the limitations. So for example, another aspect related to the limitation could be the the what? The I forgot. Oh yeah, the interest inside the students. So for example, here, as I said, study. What happened here? Okay. Estudiantes que no den su consentimiento para hacer parte dentro de la investigación. So in this case, you're going to feel yourself limited, okay? Because if they're going to tell you, no, I'm not interested, so interest right here is going to be a key aspect for you to continue developing this research, okay? Lina, teacher, but what will be the main characteristics of the limitations? Okay, the main characteristics right here are going to be physical characteristics that are going to tell you that you cannot go farther. Number one. Number two, something related to your study. In this case, um, the objectives, right? So because with the objectives, we're going to tell. Okay, so in this case, we're going to analyze these and these factors, and we're not going to analyze some other factors. In my case, for example, I was not focused mainly here on talking about, for example, how to develop phonetics. So in this case, I wasn't interested on doing that, right? As we see right here, the specific objectives, we have aplicar criterios de evaluación de producción de oral del inglés de acuerdo con la prueba PET de Cambridge. Related to what? Related to oral and oral production and interaction. So, related here. So, the limitation, one of the limitations, Lena. So, no written production, no oral comprehension, no written comprehension, right? So, that is going to be one of the limitations here. Another issue, identificar las falencias de los estudiantes en producción oral del inglés. Once again, focus on oral production. Elaborar con los estudiantes material audiovisual con el fin de implementarlo en la plataforma Edmodo en su proceso de aprendizaje colaborativo en inglés. So here I'm adding something else. I'm not going to work with cognitivism. I'm not going to work with constructivism. I'm talking about collaborative learning inside the virtual learning environment, right? Sorry, here. Okay. The other would be medir el impacto del material de Edmodo para generar un mejor desarrollo de la producción oral. So meaning right here, dealing with the pedagogical mediations inside the classroom. So my limits were going to be related to pedagogical mediations, number one. Number two, assessment criteria for oral performance. Number three, identify the possible flaws and the development or the creation of audiovisual material inside a model for students to learn collaboratively. Okay, so those are going to be the main characteristics of the limitations. So time could be people, time, space, and the research topic. I don't know if that gives a little clarity to your question, Lina.
teacher,
Yes.
but I am a little confused because I don't know if limitations and delimitations are related with objectives or I don't know,
I related to both, right?
but
I
it
sorry.
goes
Yeah.
first objectives or I don't know.
Okay. The objectives are going to let you understand the nature of what you want to research, right? So that is going to be the fact about this part. Okay. So that is to say that with these limitations, we're going to set the boundaries, or yeah, we're going to set until what point we are going to study this, or until what point we're going to do the research, right? Because if we don't put the limitations, if we don't establish the limitations, so we're not going to have the required time for us to work here. Am I only intermittent? Gina says, "Am I the only one who listens intermittent?" No, there's a kind of noise, a kind of computer noise, right? So that is why I'm muting the what I'm muting the computers. Okay,
Teacher,
so
is because I can understand what you are saying. Understand. I can understand
it's
because
because
of
it sounds
the
like a machine.
yes.
No, no, no. It's just problem with the network, right? So we need to be patient.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Okay, where is this? Where is this? Here. Okay. So once again, we're going to continue with the limitations. Okay, here. This one is the one that I was looking for, and this two, and this two. Okay. As we see it right here, um, so if you see this part, so we say, for example, that the limitations of the study are those characteristics of design or methodology that impacted or influenced the interpretation of the findings of your research. They are the constraints or generalizability applications to your practice and or utility of findings that are the result of the ways in which you initially choose to design the study of the methods used to establish internal and external validity or the result of unanticipated challenges that emerge during the study, right? So in this case, what we're going to take into account is going to be just those aspects that are going to let you do your research. As we see right here in this part, so what I was telling you, formulation of of aim and objectives. Therefore, if you formulate them right, so you're saying, for example, until which point you want to do that research. Okay, so example, the one related to Junior and Sandra. So it's going to be just related to what? Oh yeah, anxiety, right? So you're going to analyze just that anxiety issues. You're not going to analyze depression. You're not going to analyze I don't know, any other aspect related to that psychological issue, right? So it's going to be just related to anxiety. So that is going to be a limitation. Example, the one related to Lina, how culture or the course of culture, Anglophone culture impacts in the oral proficiency of students, something like that, right? Um, so you're focused on how culture, the Anglophone culture, is going to be contributing on the performance of the oral skills, right? Not the written skills, just the oral skills, right? So do you understand that part related to how the objectives are going to limit your proposal? Because I'm going to continue explaining the other ones. Yes, no, you can use the chat room, or you can activate your microphone in order to say that if you have understood or not.
Teacher, did you say
Yes.
the in my case,
Uh-huh.
Anglophone culture, how Anglophone culture contributes to performance, but it doesn't matter that we have like the principal word is like the difficulties or something like that. So we have to put it on or just I don't know if I don't know exactly what is the like the point it is speaking skill or the difficulties or
Okay, not to worry. Yeah. So not the difficulties right here, okay? So it's going to be just related to what? To until which point you're going to do the research. So if you're going to be focused on those difficulties found or how to solve these problems or these difficulties inside the course. So you're going to be focused on that, and you're going to be trying to look for any idea on how to solve that problem, right? How to contribute to that need. So as we see right here.
so teacher the boundaries like we named in the introduction lack of vocabulary, interlanguage and like 5 aspects. So we have to work on that aspect, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So
So
here, as we see
that
right
would
here.
be like that would be the like the boundaries because it exists like many characteristics or more difficulties that we like didn't name. So that is my point.
Yes. So, well, we're not going
Uh,
to be way too specific inside the what? The limitations part. But what we can do right here is going to be, sorry, I'm going to mute you again. Okay, thank you. Um, what? Yes. So as we see right here, for example, you said right. You see right here, for example, you can specify in which ways the formulation of the research aims and objectives could be narrowed so that the level of focus of the study could be increased. So if you're going to be say that one of the issues is going to be related to analyzing those difficulties established inside the statement of the problem, okay, so those are going to be one of your limitations. Trying to understand those difficulties, try to understand why some students are taking that course with still a B1 or B2 level, right? But not in a very specific part, just saying that in a general way, okay? Okay. The second point of this is going to be the implementation of data collection method. So you don't have to have an extensive experience with primary data collection, right? There is a great chance that the nature of implementation of data collection method is flawed. So example, so here we're going to mix this with the population. What if the population is not interested on answering surveys or interviews, right? What if they're just trying to answer these instruments, but not in an accurate way? So therefore, it is going to be that is going to be a limitation too, right? The second point, okay, here, Sandra. Teacher, our limitations could be could be the other fields of affective factors. Well, no, because are you going to work with depression are you going to work with depression and self-confidence? Because if you're going to work with self-confidence and anxiety, okay, so those are going to be your main points of interest. But if you're going to work with depression, okay. But if you're going to work just with anxiety, therefore, okay, no. So you're going to work with anxiety. So meaning that depression and self-confidence are not going to be inside your research. Therefore, you're going to work just with anxiety. So you can say, or you can state that taking into account that depression, self-confidence, and anxiety are very related, the main aim of this research, as it was established inside the objectives, is to analyze how anxiety affects the oral production. I don't know, I'm just inventing, right? So that's one of the limitations. We can put it over there, but not as a way to talk about the objective again. Got it? Okay, let's continue. Here, sample size. Okay, the sample size right here is going to be a kind of tricky thing right here. How? So, statistically talking, you're going to use just the 60% of the you're going to use just the 60% of the participants or the population for you to get your sample. Okay. So if you have, for example, 10 students, you're going to use just 6, right? Try not to use only one student. Try to use more than 1 or 2 or 3 students. I would say minimum 5 students. Why? Because you need to corroborate your ideas, and you need to have a plan B. For example, what if one of those students quits, right? What if one of those students say, for example, no, I don't want to continue with this class, so he quits for the class. What if one of those students in the middle of your research says, sorry, researcher, but I have no time for me to spend on this research. So you need to have various students or various participants for you to what? Yeah, for you to carry on your or to continue with your research. Okay, I'm going to continue with this. Lack of previous studies in the research area. Yes, that is going to be very, very important. What if the literature review is not enough, right? What if the literature review is old? So that is going to be just one of the limitations here, right? But what if for example, this topic of study is kind of new? So what we can do is to talk about related studies for us to have a kind of great idea on what we're going to do this research. Okay. And finally, the scope of your of discussions, right? So once again, as we see right here, you can include this point as the limitation of your research, regardless of the choice of your research area, because you don't have many years of experience of contacting researchers and producing academic papers of such a large size individually. The scope of and depth of discussion in your paper is compromised in many levels compared to the work of experienced scholars. So right here, well, this is not needed to be implemented or put over there, but we need to take into account, yes. So what we need to take into account right here is going to be just the focus you want to achieve, or what you want to achieve with this research. So if it's going to be just related to teachers' expectations, students' expectations, anxiety, oral production, autonomy, and all of those issues. So those are going to be the key aspects that you have to take into account to include inside the limitations. Okay. Okay, time for questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I think we're going to move on the ethical considerations. Okay, so everybody can talk. Okay, questions.
Teacher, um,
Yes.
those were the characteristics of limitations.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Questions, any other questions, guys?
Yes, I have one.
Okay.
Well, I saw in some projects that the ethical considerations and the limitations are in only paragraph. So is
Okay.
it to mix them, or you have to uh, do in a different paragraph, or
Okay. What we do right here is going to be just what? It's going to be just to I forgot. Okay. What we're going to do right here is going to be just to create different sections about this, right? So, for example, one section for the limitations and the other one for ethical considerations.
so it's not good to miss both of them. Not good.
Well, that depends on the research, on the protocols that we have related for writing these projects, right? In the case of our program, we create or we put, for example, ethical considerations in one place and limitations in the other place, right?
Uh,
But they're going to be just divided, right? So
okay.
yes, we see for that the ethical considerations and limitations sometimes in some papers they're going to be put in only one structure, but right here we work with two structures.
Okay. Thank you, teacher.
Okay. Any other question?
Teacher, I have one.
Okay.
So, in your thesis, you have like the limitations and limitations. So, they are just like one thing, or they are like separate. Or,
No, they are the same thing, right? It's just the format that we followed in the master degree, right? That we have right here, limitaciones y delimitaciones, right? Right
right.
here. But it's the same thing. It's like talking about in the end limitaciones, limitations, right? In the end, it's going to be the same thing. But inside the format that we had in the master degree, we dealt with that. Okay. So in the end, it's the same.
But it's better that like we write one paragraph for limitations because like you describe the limitations like time, space, and population. So we have like
Yes.
to, and then the limitations like in a specific way. Or,
Yes, yes. So you're going to write, for example, the limitations, you're going to name them, and then you're going to describe them. Okay. So, for example, you have the limitations related to let's say this situation that is happening right now, right? This thing related to the coronavirus. So that is going to be entering inside the limitations too. So they change from the presential thing or the presential or the regular way to study into the virtual learning environments. Okay, so that could be something that is going to be limiting our project. Okay.
okay.
Very good. Anybody else? Okay, finally, the ethical considerations. What are the ethical considerations? I'm going to share my screen once again for the ethical considerations. Okay. Uh, okay. So the issue related to the ethical considerations right here are going to be just related to this following aspects. Okay. So by taking into account Bremen and Bell 2007, the following 10 points represents the most important principles related to ethical considerations and in dissertations or thesis in this case, right? So we say, for example, mm, one, research participants should not be subjected to harm in any ways whatsoever. What it means that that my research, your professor is going to give you an extra credit for that, because that is going to be just lying. Okay, so what you have to tell is the truth. You need that the participant's voice or the participant's data for you to what, to validate your research. That's it. Number two, respect the dignity of the research participant should be prioritized. Therefore, anonymity. You cannot use the participants' names. No, you have to use any other names. Okay. So, for example, if one of my participants is called, let's say, Lina, or Ricardo, or Alex, or Gina, or any other, right? I can change the names. So instead of saying Lina, I'm going to use, for example, Maria. Instead of saying using Alex, I'm going to use Lionel. Instead of using Ricardo, I'm going to use, I don't know, Bruce, right? So in that way, we're going to respect the dignity and the anonymity of the students right here, or the participants in this case. Number three, full consent should be obtained from the participants prior to the study. So we're going to work with a letter of consent for you to send that to your participants. Number four, the protection of privacy of research participants had to be ensured, so anonymity. Number five, adequate level of confidentiality of the research data should be ensured. So in that letter of consent, you're going to say that every data collected is going to be just part of the research and it's going to be used just for academic purposes. Okay. Number six, the anonymity of individuals and organizations participating in the research has to be ensured. So, yeah, what I told you, anonymity. Any description, the deception or exaggeration about the aims and objectives of the research must be avoided. So go straight to the point. Try not to invent or create or, false information. No, just tell the truth. Number eight, affiliations in any form, sources of funding, as well as any possible conflicts or interests have to be declared. So here, try to avoid anything related to conflict of interest. What you're going to do is something is going to be merely academic. So stick to the point. Number nine, any type of communication in relation to the research should be done with honesty and transparency. I'm not going to do any explanation about that. And any type of misleading information, as well as representation of primary data findings in a biased way, must be avoided. Therefore, you need to use this, you need to analyze all the data in terms to answer your research questions and to validate your objectives. And that's all, right? For further information, you can watch, you can read Burke Johnson, Christensen and Burke Johnson, and what is this? Grasswell. Okay. So in order to continue with this and to finish this part, we're going to work. We're going to continue with the following issue. Number one, validity, right? So, meaning that we need to validate every instrument before applying it. Okay, so for example, if you're going to work with an interview, so um, you need to validate that. You need to validate the questions with experts in this case for you to know, or sorry, yeah, for you to know if what you're going to implement is correct or not. If it is correct, okay, continue with that. If it is not correct, try to do what? To change it and to correct it. Number two, voluntary participation and consent. Once again, you cannot force the participants to make part of your research. What you can do is to suggest them to be part of your research, right? Or to ask them for help in this case, but not pushing them. Okay, and of course you're going to have the consent, right? Confidentiality. So stick to the point that every data gathered is going to be just part of your research, nothing outside the research. Okay, so you cannot use this for personal purposes, just for academic purposes, right? And that's all. Okay, so okay, so questions about this, guys?
Teacher,
Yes,
I saw like the last semester about ethical issues, and I
yes.
want to know like anonymity is the same that voluntary participation and consent, or they have a relation, or
Yes and no. The anonymity in this case is when you're going to change the name of the participant. So as I was saying before, for example, your name is Lina, but I'm going to use a pseudonym for me to protect your integrity. So in this case, I'm not going to say you are Lina, but you are Maria, right? Or instead saying that you're Gretel, right? So that is going to be
right?
anonymity. The other part is going to be just voluntary, yeah, the voluntary part. So, for example, I'm going to ask you, do you want to make part of my research? So, if your answer is yes, so please sign the letter of consent. If no, well, no problem. See you later, and that's all.
So teacher,
Yes.
like the main aspects of ethical considerations can be like validated tools, voluntary participation and consent,
Mhm.
confidentiality, and anonymity,
Yes, that's it.
like like the most important that we have like to take into account uh, for
Then
doing
that's
the
all.
okay.
Very good. Okay. So my material is until here. I don't have any more material to talk about the ethical considerations. Now let's talk about the exam. The exam is going to be done next week on Friday. Okay, so I'm going to Lina, can you write what your listener said? Couldn't listen. What Lina said was something like that there are going to be just three main aspects related to the ethical considerations. Number one, anonymity. Number two, voluntary participation, and number three, confidentiality. Right, and that's all. Well,
But teacher, sorry, but also validated tools, or
yeah,
not, or
Well, the validation of the problem is going to be tied to the research questions, right? The research questions are going to validate the problem, and
Okay.
the purpose is going to be validated by the objectives, right? Remember also, the theory is going to validate the problem, and the what? The literature review is going to validate the purpose. Got it?
Literature review the purpose.
Literature review the purpose, and the theoretical framework, the statement of the problem.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So
For the
we can
exam,
continue.
yes.
We can continue,
Tell me,
teacher.
Lina. Thank you. Okay. So for the exam, what I would like you to do is the following thing. Number one, we need to write the first chapter. Okay, by implementing APA format and style in its what is this? In its sixth edition. Okay, number one. Number two, you're going to use the what? The format of the template of the university for you to send it. That is going to be just the written part. The second part is going to be the way in which you're going to do the oral presentation. Last time I told you something like to implement or to use maybe screencast-o-matic or voice thread, right? So you can record your videos, you can put them inside the what the screen damn it, sorry, the voice thread presentation, and we can watch the presentation of there, and that's all. Instead of making the presentation live in the streaming.
And the
Question?
time.
Time. Let's say maximum. What was that? No more than 15 minutes, right? So all the presentations from this term, the second term, and the third term, they're going to have a maximum time of 15 minutes, okay? So what we're going to present right here is going to be chapter one. Therefore, yeah, chapter one. So therefore, try not, well, you're going to be focused right here on the first chapter. So you're going to have 10 to 15 minutes in order to explain everything, okay? In the second term, what you're going to do is to explain the what? The second chapter, but also by showing the corrections you have done or any kind of updates you have done in the first chapter. Therefore, the main focus is going to be chapter number 2. The last part of this is going to be the chapter number 3, methodology, and also you're going to give in the third term the main focus to the third chapter but also by talking about the first and the second chapter. But the main focus is going to be just the third chapter. Okay. And I think that's all. Okay, guys, I'm going to require you to activate your cameras because I need to take a screenshot for the list. And I think that's all. Okay. Well, right here there was Lina, Geraldine, Junior, Sandra, Alex, and Gina. So if you mind, please, can you use can you activate your camera, please, for me to take a screenshot? Okay. Okay, Sandra and Lina, can you activate the camera, please? Just the camera. You don't need the microphones.
Teacher, I cannot use my camera. I don't know why.
Okay. Okay, not to worry. Okay. Sandra, can you use your camera? Okay. I'm going to take the screenshot right now. Okay, in 3, 2, 1, and it's done. Guys, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to stop recording.